Uh, Good day nowadays, students and graduate students, and I wish you warm welcome from the Faculty of Maritime Studies Rijeka. My name is Joškin Srđan, and I have the role of the president of the Alumni Club, and I wish you warm welcome at our Alumni Online Day. The Faculty of Maritime Studies, University of Rijeka Alumni Club is an association club of graduate students of Faculty of Maritime Studies. The Alumni Club is established with the aim of strengthening the reputation of the Faculty of Maritime Studies Rijeka, promoting market recognition and maritime tradition, as well as connecting former graduate students with their educational institution. And what is more important, I think, to interconnecting you, nowadays students, with the maritime industry, especially for new job opportunities. One of the most valuable success of the Alumni Club is the establishment of close cooperation with many business entities from the maritime industry, as well as shipping companies. Therefore, for today Alumni Online Day, I'm very glad to represent Mr. Jan Kozer, who is a crew development manager from the shipping company Oldendorf Carriers. The Oldendorf shipping company today operates with around 700 ships, bulk carriers vessel. And also here today with us is Mr. Philip Golesh. He is CEO from the DGS Crewing Agency, local representative in Rijeka for Oldendorf Shipping Company. Today's topics is related to the bulk carrier market and also career opportunities. So I'm very glad that you are here with us, and then you will find very interesting presentation. And now I'm giving the word to our guest today, distinguished guest, Mr. Jan Kozer. Hello, Gab.
Thank you very much, Srđan. Thank you for the warm words, for the introduction, and also welcome everyone to our presentation today. I'm very glad that so many of you are here. So I'm counting about 47 participants right now, and my personal goal is that at least half of you will still be here in the end of the presentation. Yeah? But that will also depend on the content today. And also, I hope we can keep it kind of interactive. Otherwise, I will have to speak the whole time. So if there's anything you want to know and any questions you will have, please let us know. There is a question and answer function here. Over the time, we will collect all the questions and hopefully we'll be able to answer as many of them as possible after the presentation. Right, then let me start. So as a personal introduction, my name is Jan Kozer. I'm a crew development manager in Oldendorf Carriers. Before I joined Oldendorf, I was in the German military and became a captain, so a military officer. So I don't have a seagoing background, but I'm in shipping now for my time in Oldendorf, plus another 3 years during my apprenticeship with a German shipping agency. So I started in Oldendorf 2012 in the legal and insurance department, where I have dealt with many claims of cargo claims, nature of personal injury cases, which was very interesting. And afterwards, I switched over to our crewing department because I had the feeling that I should do something more people related. And I'm now in charge for our Oldendorf Cadet program, and therefore I'm here today to tell you a little bit about Oldendorf, but also about the boat market. I'm not alone. I'm also accompanied by Mr. Philip. Philip is the CEO, the managing director of our partners in Croatia. And Philip, maybe you want to introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, just briefly before we continue, good morning everyone. Dear Jan, dear Srđan, thank you very much for the introduction and all the efforts during the last few days in order to make this event happen, actually. On behalf of DGS agency, I would also like to thank all the students, cadets and participants of today's webinar. Really, it is highly appreciated that you find time to join us and hear more about Oldendorf Carriers Company from Jan directly. I have to say that DGS is very proud to be taking up the position of being an exclusive representative of Oldendorf Carriers for Croatia and the region. personally, I also look forward, Jan, to learn something new about Oldendorf family today. So really looking forward to it. And before we start and continue, again, reminder, please, dear participants, use the questions and answer section. We like questions, we need questions, because in this way we can only get better. We will also have live poll questions later on, nothing major, a couple of questions, and then we really, again, kindly ask you to participate, because we strongly believe that every opinion counts, especially from your side. So last but not least, even though this is the first such collaboration with Oldendorf, I believe there will be more during the next months and years. In the meantime, DGS agency will have completely an open door for everyone who need any kind of assistance and have still, again, questions. So Jan, not to take any more time from your presentation, handing back over to you. We will sit and relax and listen.
All right, thank you, Philip. Okay, then I will give you a short overview about my presentation today. So we already finished the introduction part. The next one will be COVID-19, which I think is affecting all of us very heavily. And of course, the shipping industry is also affected by the coronavirus in some ways. I will give you a short overview on what happened to us during the last few months. Then I will follow with an introduction about Oldendorf carriers, then talk about the boat market. And also, you have to forgive me, but I'm not a commercial guy. So everything I will tell you about numbers, I will keep as short as possible, because, well, the numbers can always be interpreted in a certain way. And therefore, I think the bigger picture is what matters today. So I will also tell you about our fleet, about, last but not least, the job opportunities. And then I'm looking forward to many questions which we can answer. Of course, I hope I can answer most of them right away during the presentation, but still, if there's anything left, please do not hesitate to ask. And that's also what we need in Oldendorf, to be very clear. We need a certain character of people. We need people who don't hesitate to speak or who like to communicate. And you can already start today by raising your questions, and then I hope we can answer as many of them as possible. Moving on, COVID-19. As you can see behind me, I'm not sitting in our office, because due to the restrictions we have in Germany, I'm still obliged to work from home. So if you hear a baby screaming in the background, it can well be my son. Also, if a tractor comes by, I'm living in the German countryside. That's the situation we have to deal with today. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure Croatia also has some restrictions in place. For the time being, luckily, everyone here in our region is fine, and the virus is more and more disappearing, but yeah, better safe than sorry. And now I will give you a short overview on what happened to our fleet during the last few months. First of all, we had many of our seafarers being trapped on board, not because nobody was left in the Oldendorf office, but because many countries in the world have stopped their crew change opportunities. So all the airports have been closed. Many ports have been closed for some time at least. All different countries had to find their own way to deal with the new situation, which I think none of us has ever experienced before. Therefore, as you can see on the pictures, everyone was now suddenly obliged to wear a mask. We had quite big problems to take our new deliveries from the shipyards in China, just because China suddenly didn't allow any other nationals to go to China for taking over a ship. So what we had to do, we had a very short window where we could fly in only Sri Lankan nationals. So that's what you can see on this picture here. This is a full Sri Lankan crew, which is very untypically for Oldendorf, because normally we only have mixed people on board. But due to the situation, we had to find as many Sri Lankans as possible who were qualified and able to travel to China to take our vessel. Also, you can see here, this is a photo taken in Rotterdam. Everyone had to put on some safety wear and protective wear, gloves, masks, suits, and so on. So that was very challenging for all of us. As I mentioned, most of our crew could not be relieved from the vessels just because the ports have been closed. We are still facing the situation, but believe it or not, I'm very surprised that we didn't receive any complaints yet. And this is really amazing. And therefore, I'm really glad to have such loyal people in our company, because all of them have understood that that wasn't because we made a mistake. That was because of the coronavirus. And I always say, if people are loyal to us, the company will be loyal to them. So they can all be sure that if they are still on board, then they will have a longer vacation to follow. And of course, the guys who have been planned to join them on board, they will give them the opportunity to stay longer, because all of them will have some loans to pay with the bank, and people need money. That's why we all do the job. And therefore, we will try to be as flexible as possible so that everyone will get more or less a fair deal. Yeah? That's what we always try. Other companies may not be able to do that because they don't have so much financial reserves in the background. Luckily, we are in a good position. And well, that's all about the COVID-19. Let me say again, I hope that all of you are doing fine. Hopefully, we will overcome this situation pretty soon so that we can continue as normal. Yeah. Now, moving ahead, a few words about Oldendorf. I know that history is usually tending to be boring, so I will only give you a brief overview. Oldendorf is a German company. It's a family-owned company. It was founded in 1921 in Germany, then was operating from Hamburg for quite some time before we moved back, or the company moved back to Lübeck. Now in Lübeck is our headquarter on top of a big hotel, so we have a nice view above the old city of Lübeck. For those of you who don't know, Lübeck is in the northern part of Germany, about 1 hour away from Hamburg. Hamburg is also our second place in Germany where we are running an office. We have split our operation so that the commercial departments are mostly located in Hamburg, and the fleet department, for example, is still back in Lübeck. As I mentioned, it's privately owned, which is putting us into a lucky position, let's say, because there are no stakeholders, no shareholders who can force us to anything that we don't want. Mr. Henning Oldendorf is still working in the company. He always says it's his hobby to sail and purchase ships, so he is more or less running the sale and purchase desk, which is becoming more and more also a real business for us. So whenever we sell a vessel, we will make profit. So we are not only making money with the overseas transportation, but also with our vessels itself. A very short overview about the general figures. So the cargo capacity in our fleet has really climbed over the last years, as you can clearly see on the graphs. This is million tons, yeah, so 326 million tons of cargo carried in 2019. I will give you some other figures about that later. We are continuously delivering positive financial results. That means we are winning money, even though the shipping industry is struggling nowadays because the market is difficult. We have many political situations in the world which are also affecting us working in the industry. But thanks to all the experts we have in our department, we are still earning money, making profit. Therefore, we have a strong financial position. We can still build our own ships subject to our own requirements. So we are going for eco-friendly vessels as whenever there's the possibility. So we have invested quite a lot of money in our eco-friendliness. We are also investing money in other businesses. For example, we had spent some money for some time in airline industry as well, just because the shipping market went down and we wanted to do something useful with the money. So we invested in a few airplanes, which are now sold again. Right, that's enough for this slide. Let me continue with some more key figures. We have about 60 nationalities working in our fleet. So multinationality is definitely a key part of Oldendorf. Our working language is English, but anyhow, if there is a lunch break, you will hear people talking in their mother tongue with their colleagues. So if you walk through the German offices, you will really see people from all over the world, and this is really amazing. We have, as mentioned before, about 320 million tons of cargo transported during the last year. We have more or less, because the numbers are always going up and down, 700 vessels operated or owned by us. We have 4,000 employees in the whole world. Our financial turnover, as you can see, is also quite significantly. We have 18 offices in the whole world. And to give you an overview where you can find us, we are really based in all the major hubs that you can think of on the whole planet. Even though in some of the offices there are only very few people, 2-3 guys from the chartering department, for example, this is putting us still in a very comfortable situation, because whenever we need any kind of assistance, we have our own people available. We are running our own port captains, which only job is to support our own vessels. So when an Oldendorf vessel goes to West Africa, for example, which is a region where life can be very difficult and also business can be difficult at times, we have our own people flying in to take care that everything will run as smooth as possible, as smoothly as possible. We have our own network of insurance representatives. So whenever there's something going wrong, whenever we have a cargo claim or something like that, we have people right at the spot who can assist our people on board. That's very convenient, and that's also what we owe to our seafarers. I always say the seafarers are my colleagues. This is sometimes handled differently in other companies, but in Oldendorf, we are really all colleagues. Also, if you compare us with another German ship-owning company, for example, we are not really old-fashioned. We are not wearing suits, we are not wearing ties. Henning Oldendorf one day sent an email around saying, from now on, you can call me Henning, you don't have to say Mr. Oldendorf, which is also making communication with everyone much more easy. It's a very friendly atmosphere. And when you call somebody in Stamford or Tokyo, you're still talking to a friend. Yeah? Same like you're calling a vessel in the middle of the Pacific, you're calling a colleague, you're calling someone who is working for the same company. That's not too interesting for a seaman, I guess, but I just want to show you that we're doing our homework. Yeah? We are a company having all the important departments in place. So we have our own bunker desk, for example. We take care of our own bunker stamps. We have our port operation department, which I was talking about. We have a department only responsible for all the equipment. Then, of course, a lot of financial departments. Our IT department now became very important during the Corona times, as you can imagine. Now suddenly everyone had to work from home, so they did a very good job. And of course, we have our crewing department with ISM, plus the green ship department. So the green ship department, for example, is working every day to make our ships more eco-friendly and to find out if we can improve something in our equipment. Over the time, Oldendorf has been awarded with some company awards. Last year, we became, for the second time already, the bulk ship operator of the year. Also, we have some cooperations with universities in the whole world. As you hear now, I'm talking to you from Croatia. We have done the same also in Poland. We have done the same in Turkey. And we will also continue in some other places in the world. Some time ago, we did it with Trinidad and Tobago, because we were running an office there. We also decided to do something for the local students. Well, this is it. I was not involved in many of these awards, or hardly in any of them. So therefore, I will continue with what I know best. We are here to talk about the shipping market. And I don't know about you, but whenever I tell people who don't know me that I'm working in shipping, they say, container. I said, no, container. But what's left? What's other than container? Oil and gas. You're working on a tanker. No, not really. Maybe this new stuff with this windcraft stuff like in the offshore industry. No, still don't. And also, it's not the passenger ship. No, we are working in the dry bulk market. And there is a reason why I put the dry bulk on top. Not because it's the best or something. I'm not the one to tell you, but the numbers really speak for themselves, that most of the cargo that is carried around the globe is indeed dry bulk cargo. So I will give you some examples about the cargo itself, so that you will understand that in your daily life, you are using dry bulk cargo over and over again, and you will definitely not stop as long as you live. And I'm also not here to say that all the other businesses are bad, yeah? But to be honest, when the money is coming short, you will definitely hesitate to buy a new TV or buy a new stereo hi-fi machine or something like that, which is usually coming with a container. Of course, all of us who have a car, we will still and always depend on oil and gas until we have Tesla in the whole world for achievable prices. And of course, we need the electricity. So gas and heating and so on is always important. But like offshore industry, it came up a few years ago, and then it came really, really big. And then the financial market collapsed and offshore almost disappeared. I mean, at least for some time. Now I know that many young people nowadays say that my dream is to work on an offshore supply vessel where I can work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. The truth is, this is a really challenging work, a really challenging job. And also, there is no guarantee that the offshore market will not collapse again. Therefore, at least personally, I will always look for a constant and permanent employment with a company that will likely be there also in the next few years. So we are here still 1921, and I think we will also remain here for a little bit more time. And also, I don't want to ruin any of your dreams, but this perspective of a passenger vessel usually is only for the tourists. Yeah. So working on a passenger vessel doesn't mean that you will see these nice beaches and the palms whenever the vessel goes somewhere. The reality is that you will work in there. Mostly the crew cabins will be inside of the ship. So I think only the upper level officers will have a window. Again, not here to say anything bad about the other businesses, but I want to introduce you to the dry bulk and want to make you understand why it always been there and why it will always be there in the future. As I mentioned, dry bulk. Now we go ahead. What is characteristic and typical for the dry bulk industry? It's the tramp business. If you compare it with something you know from your everyday life, if you take the bus from the airport to the train station, let's say, you know exactly when the bus will depart and you know exactly where it will go and when it will arrive at the destination. If you compare the tramp business with the public transportation, we will likely be the taxi. So you will take the taxi, and on the way to the train station, you realize, ah, shit, I have to stop at the supermarket. You can do that with our vessels because we are flexible. You can hardly convince the bus driver and all the other passengers around you that this is a good idea now to make an unplanned stop in between. So my point is, our market is really mostly driven, not only, but mostly driven by voyage charterers. That means we have our chartering department asking us, like, have we got a vessel in, let's say, South America area, because we have some cargo of soya beans to be shipped to China. Then we will look for the right vessel for this business and likely sign the voyage charter. So we can never know where we will go next, because on the way to China, it can also happen that the cargo will be sold to somebody in Indonesia or in Japan or in Russia. Of course, we will always look for usual places in the area where the vessel is going, but it can also be that you have to make a U-turn and go somewhere else. So everything is flexible. You never know where the vessel will go next, which has, and I want to be honest about this, also an effect to our crew changes. It can be, this is why we have to be flexible in our contracts as well. It can be that you are planned to sign off next week, and then out of a sudden, due to any political situation, whatever, the country where you were planned to sign off decides that we will not accept any nationals from Croatia. Or if so, we have to get an escort by the police or something. That all happened. We had that with a few nationalities in the world, where out of a sudden China, for example, says, no, you cannot come with these people ashore. So they had to be on board and they had to wait for the next stop in maybe 2-3 weeks later. This is why our contracts always say we have a flexibility of ±2 months, just to be able to get you from the vessel whenever there's a possibility. Even it means that you will shorten your contract slightly. But again, we are flexible. We will try to find a solution for the next contract. Then dry cargo. I think to understand what dry cargo means, we have to look at the different types of cargoes, and we have to be clear about its characteristics. So if you compare dry cargo handling with containers, the container will be loaded on the vessel in China, will contain nice TV screens for Europe, and the crane will put it on the ship. The vessel will go to Rotterdam or to Hamburg or wherever, and the cargo is being discharged. It usually goes pretty fast. The vessel will not stay very long in the port because the schedule and the, let's say the timetable already shows when the vessel has to be in the next port. If you compare it with a tanker as well, the crew will hardly ever see the cargo because it will be pumped on board over the pipes. It will be stored in the big tanks, and in best case, you will never see it because usually what you put in tanks is very dangerous for your human health. I mean, it can also be juice or wine, but mostly we are talking about fuel or any kind of oil, something like that. So you really don't want to get in touch with it. Now I'm coming to the dry cargo. Dry cargo needs quite a lot of caretaking, because if you put some wheat in, let's say, in a cold environment, and you're going to warmer environment, to warmer climate, you have to ventilate it. You have to ventilate it. You have to fumigate it. You have to put in some gas cartridges so that you can get rid of all the bugs that might be living in the wheat. Otherwise, you will arrive at the discharge port and everything is spoiled. So therefore, you really have to take care of your cargo. You really have to ensure that the cargo will arrive in the same condition as you loaded it. Unfortunately, I had many cases when I was working in the claims department where you could see that something even went wrong. Yeah? It can be human failures, it can be equipment failures. So always something happens, let's be honest. Yeah? You can put some steel coils on board the ship, which is also dry cargo, and they can get rusty because during the loading conditions in India, there was a lot of humidity around, and then it's also trapped in the wrapping of the steel coil. And over the time, if you do wrong ventilation, the cargo is rusting away, and then you have a damage claim from the cargo receivers. So my point is, dry cargo needs a lot of caretaking. I want to give you some overview on what we are doing in Oldendorf, because this is what I know best. Of course, there's basically everything you can think of which is dry and you can put in a pile is called dry cargo and is called bulk cargo. But as you can see here, also windcraft or windmill towers, windmill blades, something like that. This is also called dry cargo or project cargo, and we also have that on our ships quite often. To give you a better overview, we really carry all cargo sizes that you can put inside our cargo holds. We even saw a water plane in there or a helicopter, but that's really the special cases. Usually we have bulk, so which is iron ore, which is coal, which is pet coke, cement, even scrap. Then we have our project cargo like windmill towers and also parceling, so that we put, for example, you can have on the same ship in one cargo hold, you can have cement, and in the next cargo hold, you can have steel coils. So you can really mix it, which puts us in the lucky position that we can offer cheaper freight rates to our customers. To give you even more examples about what is moving the world, you can see even timber products here. You can see fertilizers, which is important for everyday life. And this is what I initially mentioned. All of you will eat bread every day. As long as you are living, you need bread. And as long as you are eating bread, the farmers around you need the fertilizer. And of course, to switch on the heating or to operate your MacBook, you will need coal for the electricity. Now, this is slowly turning into other energy sources, but still iron ore, coal is always used for the steel production. So every nail you will put inside your wall to hang a picture or painting is made of steel, is made of iron ore in the end. For alumina, for example, you need special concentrates, you need bauxite as well to be able to make very lightweight stuff. Again, back to the MacBook example, the whole frame, the whole case of the MacBook is made by aluminum. So all this has to be shipped around the globe. Now, back to my market example, as I mentioned, before you will buy a new TV, I think you will go to the supermarket and get some food supply. And therefore, the bulk industry is really heavily connected to the whole world situation. Even if there is a war or if there's some environmental crisis in some countries, you can also see it in our business. For example, if the rainforests in Brazil are burning, then you will have some impact on our soya bean production or on our soya bean trade, but still it will never disappear, because even if China now decides that they will run away from any power supply based on coal, other countries in the world are still setting up this to at least overcome the problems they would face without any electricity in the next years. So we have, for example, a new project in Bangladesh where we are shipping coal so that they can finally start implementing a modern infrastructure. Then another overview just to show you how much iron ore is really moving the world, because steel is really needed for everything, for every house, for every car, for every airplane, every ship. You need iron ore, you need coal, And then, of course, it's followed by grains and all the other material which you need for dealing with our everyday life. Then I will show you some main trading areas, and I will only give you 3 examples, because if we would talk about all the different cargoes, I think it would really blow the agenda today. So I will focus on iron ore and coal and soya beans. I have used some overview here from Banchero and Costa, which our commercial guys are using. There are some experts monitoring the market and giving some estimations for the development of the business. So as you can see here, iron ore is really mostly shipped from South America, from North America to China. Also, there are some trades from Australia. We have a very important business going on with Port Hedland, which is a place in the middle of nowhere on the Australian coast, where iron ore is being loaded to the vessels, which then go to China. So China is one of the, or is the biggest importer of iron ore. I had the pleasure to sail with one of our vessels myself, and we went to Qingdao. Qingdao is the biggest iron ore import port in the world. And I can tell you, it's really amazing. Hopefully you will see it with your own eyes one day. You can't believe how much iron ore is laying around there. If you go there, you have really mountains of iron ore around you, and you have all the steel mills, and you have all the workers there, and it's almost like an own city only for iron ore. So enough about iron ore. What I want to point out is that China is a very important player for the iron ore business, and even if China will move away, then likely Africa will become the next big hub. That's what you can really expect for the next years. Mostly we are using our Capesize and Panamax vessels because they have the biggest cargo capacity. Yeah? Then I give you another example of coal. Again, China is #1 with 264 million tons imported in 2019, which is quite a lot. But also we have coal being shipped to Europe. We have coal being shipped to India. So basically all the places where steel is being produced and where people are still heating or using electricity from coal, these are the important players as well. And then finally, soya beans. The vegetarians of you, they will know tofu. So the soya beans are what tofu comes from. Also, it's used for feeding our animals, for feeding the cows. So if you eat a nice steak, it's very likely that the cow was previously fed with tofu or soya beans. This is really what most people never think of. I mean, not of tofu, but of soya beans. So many people don't really know about it, don't really know how important it is for the world. But as you can see, how much cargo, how much soya beans are being shipped around the globe over 1 year, this is really amazing. And also in Brazil, as I mentioned, if the rainforests are burning, for example, then it will also have some effect. If you want to do yourself, or if you want to see an example, just go to marine traffic and go to the Brazilian coast and see how many vessels are waiting for the next burst. This is really a nice picture to see how many ships are going there regularly. Then we have the dry bulk total quantity, the total amount of cargo being shipped around, also in million tons. So this is actually 4 billion tons, 4,361 million tons expected for 2020. So if you look at the last year, there was also even higher. My point is, the container market, I don't have any overview about the containers, but the container market will surely have gone down over the time, at least during the crisis. As you can see here, we are constantly growing. The market is constantly growing because people need resources, and this is shipped on the dry bulk vessels. And again, China is the biggest player, so it's almost half of the total quantity in the world. Now, moving back to our own cargo flows. So this is where Oldendorf is doing business. So we are really covering the whole world. And this is important to understand. We are really everywhere. So if you go to our website and check all the positions of our ships, we can be found everywhere. Even in some of the rivers, in the Mississippi River, for example, you will see the vessels loading in Savannah and so on. So there are many ships traveling around 365 days a year. And also the life on board, of course, is driven by different time zones as well. So we can be really thankful to all our loyal seafarers of doing the job. And also, hopefully, you will become one of or few of them in the future. And then if you look at the globe and if you look where the vessels are trading, it's very likely that you will be going to these places as well. So whenever a ship is doing cargo operations, you need equipment, you need a port, you need some infrastructure. Unfortunately, same is not available in the whole world. So it can be that you are going to places where you have to improvise, where you have to be flexible. This is why Oldendorf has set up our own transshipment department. So we are calling them project department. The guys working in there, they are responsible for basically creating solutions for problems. So whenever a customer comes to us and says, listen, I want to go, I want to ship some iron ore from Guyana in Middle America to, I don't know, maybe the Middle East, then we will very quickly realize that there isn't any bigger port in Guyana, at least no port where we can go with our bigger vessels. So therefore, we have to come up with a solution. We firstly started it in Turkey in 2002, where we have built something like this here. You will see a better picture on the next slide. But the point is, whenever there's no infrastructure available, we will find a solution to bring everything there so that we can still do the cargo operation. Back to the Guyana example, we even put one of our portable jack-ups, which is like a dry dock. So you would find it in the river delta. And whenever our tugs had a problem, they could just go in there and you could do all the maintenance in the middle of the jungle because there was nothing around them. We have some floating platforms. We are currently also building some new transloading vessels with some special crane equipment. We have our own tugs, we have our own barges, and I will give you a small overview on our ongoing projects during the next slides. As you can see, our project department is containing more than 1,000 employees. And I just want to point out that all these people, in best case, have had a career in Oldendorf before. So that's also special about Oldendorf. As we are so big and as we have so many different branches, we always try to man all the positions with our own people. And the truth is that in most of the projects, most of the people, even later on the shore-based positions, like the technical managers or the navigational managers, something like that, they will have a previous career in Oldendorf. So people have sailed as seamen, have maybe even started as cadets, and then later on they joined all the projects. Also in Oldendorf, you will find many superintendents who are being recruited from our own fleet. So as I mentioned, we are big enough to also find positions for people if they realize that they cannot or they don't want to work at sea anymore. In the end, it's all about performance. I will come to this later. Here you can see a nice drone photo. I will tell you a secret. I think the drone was landing in the water afterwards because the drone pilot didn't really realize that a GPS coordinate in the water will still be the same, even though the vessel has meanwhile drifted away. So the vessel was on anchor, and he said, listen here, very nice, the drone can land exactly where it started. Unfortunately, due to the current, the vessel had meanwhile slipped away, and therefore the drone is now, I think, in Iskenderun in Turkey on the ground. So different story. We have our transshipment with division. We will arrange ocean-going transportation, but also we will try to find a solution for the cargo operation. As you can see here, it can be ship-to-ship operation. We can use a platform which we use to either fill up an ocean-going vessel by smaller barges. This is mostly driven by the current, and no, not by the current, sorry, by the draft. So if there isn't enough water underneath your keel that you can go there with a Cape-size vessel, then you have to use a transshipment platform in order to transload the cargo from smaller units to bigger units, but also it works into the other direction. I will give you some examples now. For example, we are doing something in the Arabian Gulf. As you can see, the cargo is coming from Canada and Brazil, Norway, being transloaded on some transloading vessels, as you can see here, being shipped to barges. We have our own tug, and then we are supplying one of the steel mills. Some additional photos here of our Abu Dhabi business. The vessels are normally always based there. During the COVID-19, we couldn't continue for some time, so we had to use the vessels for different purposes, which I will give you an example. Then we have Turkey, as I mentioned, in Iskenderun. It's a very nice platform. It was built in Europe, built in Poland. Again, we have all our equipment that we need, and we are supplying a coal plant so that that the Turkish people have electricity. Again, some photos. Then we have our transshipment operation in Trinidad, where we have put our equipment here in a nice bay, which is providing the perfect environment, the perfect conditions for ship-to-ship operations, because there is no big swell, there's no heavy wind, no big or any weather problems. So therefore, we found the best place for that. We are really collecting cargo from the whole American continent, delivering it to Trinidad for transloading it on our bigger vessels and then shipping it over to China. Some more photos. You can also see all the photos on our website. Now, this is new. I don't have a photo because this unit here is not yet existing. We are still building it. It will be something very new for all of us. It will be diesel electric, so something very interesting for our engineers and ETOs, I guess. Vietnam is now slowly turning into a big market, and therefore this is how it looks right now. So they're still building all the infrastructure, but we are meanwhile creating our own equipment. We also have Bangladesh. So in order to supply Bangladesh with cargo, we have to go to the Andaman Islands. Andaman Islands are in the middle of the Indian Ocean, belonging to India, but they are the only place where we have deep water and nice weather conditions to do cargo operations. Otherwise, if we would do it directly in front of the coastline, we would be facing problems whenever there are these periods of heavy weather during the tsunami times and so on. So the Andaman Islands are only famous. Really, the only thing I heard about the Andaman Islands before was that an American tourist was eaten by a crocodile on their honeymoon. So that was very unfortunate, and definitely our crew is not allowed to go swimming and snorkeling. But it's an interesting place indeed, and we have one transloader there, and the business is also growing. Now, we already have a business in South Vietnam. Everything is working smoothly. We have shipped over one of our units from Trinidad. It's our Lena, it's our transshipment platform with cranes and everything, so you can see it here. Most of the colleagues from the crewing department have been there, and it's really amazing to see how Vietnam is also developing. All right, next slide. Some more photos. Then you can see that that's just an example from 2019, but at any given time, an Oldendorf vessel with mounted cranes is sailing in the world. So whenever there's a problem, and that's my next point, whenever there's another vessel having problems because they rent the ground, for example, or they have a leakage or something, then they usually have to get rid of the cargo. Otherwise, the vessel will never become floating again. So therefore, we can use, and we have done this now in several occasions, we can use our own equipment to marine salvage operations. So we can rescue the other vessels. This is an example here from the Suez Canal, where one of the vessels went aground, and we on short notice decided to send one of our units from the Arabian Gulf to help the other ship owner here. And that's also amazing how flexible we can be and how flexible also our crew is. There are some other examples here. We did this also with our Geber Oldendorf, and we did this with our Geber was actually doing it twice. So as you can see, if customers approach us with a request for any or regarding any problem, we will always try to be flexible and try to help. Now, let me talk about our fleet. We are running vessels for all the bigger trades in the world. So as you can see, sometimes the vessels need to pass the Suez Canal because they want to go to the Arabian Gulf, for example. Then in other cases, if they're going to China, we can even use bigger vessels to go around South Africa. So we have vessels for all the different purposes we need. We have our handy-size vessels. They're all geared with cranes. We have our Panamax vessels. So Panamax means that they can still travel via the Panama Canal. And we have our Cape-size vessels, Cape-size because they are traveling around the Cape of Good Hope in Africa. That means they're too big for the Panama Canal. If we look at the worldwide fleet of vessels, then you can see that there are by far more dry bulk carriers on the market than container vessels or tankers. This is also interesting for you, I guess, because that means that the dry bulk market, once you decide to join it, will very likely give you other opportunities to work in a different company. So even if you decide to leave Oldendorf, there are other companies as well in the dry bulk sector. For the tankers and container vessels, they are really depending on the market. For the dry bulk, as long as there's China and as long as there are countries developing and moving up, there will be dry bulk vessels. And you can see the Oldendorf portion of it. We are operating 700 vessels, which is at least almost 7% of the worldwide bulk fleet. So this is actually quite a lot, because all this year they are all controlled by smaller companies, and we are sharing, or we are owning this share of almost 7% only for Oldendorf. So as I mentioned already, we have vessels for all the different businesses here. We can go to shallow waters, we can go to deep water. It always depends on the cargo operation needed. To give you an overview about our fleet and also the fleet size, we really increased our vessel fleet capacity during the last years, as you can see here. Mostly we are, the biggest portion of our vessels are the big beasts like the Capesize and Panamax vessels. And all our vessels, up to 95% already, are eco-friendly. So that means we have installed LED lights, for example, instead of regular light bulbs. That may sound like, yeah, and what? But if you consider the amount of fuel that we could save over 1 year with all our fleet, then it's actually quite significant, because every light bulb you switch on board will finally mean that you will consume fuel for that. So whenever you switch to an LED light, you have a clear benefit. Then also we have installed scrubber systems and ballast water treatment systems. So there is an obligation now from the beginning of January 2020 by the IMO that all the vessels in the world have to comply with the sulfur regulations, which are limiting the allowed sulfur emission by ships to 0.5%. Now there are two possibilities to comply with this rule. Either you can use low sulfur fuel oil, which we are doing as well, and every vessel needs low sulfur fuel oil on board. But just think about what would happen if everyone suddenly would use low sulfur fuel oil. First of all, the market would collapse, because all the refineries are not yet in the position to produce so much low sulfur fuel oil. And of course, it will immediately have a significant impact on the prices. So right now, it's still impossible to only go with low sulfur oil. So therefore, we had to look for a solution to continue using heavy fuel oil, and we decided to go for scrubbers. Scrubbers are exhaust gas cleaning systems, and I'm not an engineer, and I always explain it to people around me like it's basically a shower. It has the same function like a shower. Yeah, you have a pipe, the exhaust gas evaporates from the pipe, and inside the pipe you have some little nozzle spraying very fine water dust, and the water dust is finally cleaning all the sulfur content out of the exhaust gas. Now all the engineers around you, they will all have a better explanation, but I think it more or less describes the process. And I think it's really good. Whenever you see a vessel with black smoke coming out of the funnel, you can be sure that they are not using low sulfur oil, and they are not using a scrubber system, and they're definitely not complying with the rule. So the scrubber systems are very important for the market, are very important for our business, because if they are not working properly, we have a problem. And in the United States waters, for example, we can even lose our permission to do business. So therefore, we are really taking it very serious, and we even decided to put an additional engineer on our vessels so that we can be sure that there's enough capacity left and the chief engineer has enough resources in case there's any problem. Right. I will give you an overview of some of our new buildings. This is the bigger vessel class. So we have quite a lot of Newcastle vessels coming or have been delivered already into our trades. They are really mostly traveling to China, as I mentioned. Then we have some new transloaders for our projects. Then we have some G-class and K-class vessels coming. Now just some examples here. We have some handy-size vessels coming, and well, all of them are interesting. All of them are, we try to keep them in the same vessel class, so that whenever a seaman comes from one E-class vessel to another, he will be familiar with most of the things on board, because they are all sister ships. The good thing is that people will also take more responsibility and take more ownership of the vessel. That's what we realized over the time. So people will almost feel like coming home when they're in a constant rotation. Joining the next E-class vessel is really like as usual, everything as usual. Looking at our new buildings to come this year, as you can see, this year is quite busy, especially for the Kamsa-Max team. And as I mentioned, we are in the unlucky position now that the vessels are being built in China, not only China, but also Japan. But at least in China, we have the problem that we cannot fly in all the crew that has been planned. So we have to be flexible. During the next years, there will be more. But between you and me, I think there will be more vessels to come, even if it's not announced yet. But as I mentioned, Henning Oldendorf and his colleagues are still very active. And whenever there's a good deal, we will likely do it, because in the end, it's also money that we make. The good thing for our crew is, and this is again back to loyalty, whenever we are selling a vessel, it doesn't mean that we will automatically fire all the people that have been previously sailed on board. We will always try to find a solution. We will always try to keep you in our employment, even if it means that the guys on board now have a shorter contract, so that we can at least give all of you the chance to earn money. Yeah, because whenever you have proven to us that you are or that you are doing good performance and you are you are really belonging to our company, then we will not let you go. Yeah, for sure. Now I think it's time to give you some more examples on why crew likes to work in Oldendorf, and hopefully I can convince one or two of you to maybe send their application, because it's also an open secret. We need people. We need cadets, because we need also officers in the future. So therefore we decided that we will invest money and efforts and time and resources in cadet training, because in a few years, all our old experienced people will go on retirement, and then we still need good people to sail our vessels and to take over the responsibility. And this is why we have selected some sourcing areas in the world, of which Croatia is definitely one of them. We already have some cadets from Croatia sailing on board. We also have some people from your university. One of them just called me this morning, asked me, because she saw the link on Facebook, what this is all about. We're even hiring people sometimes for our shore-based position in our marine accounting department, and finally to transfer them into our operation department. But as I mentioned, I'm here to recruit people for the cadets. So I'm not thinking of my colleagues now from the other departments. It would be nice if we would receive some applications from you later on, because we really believe that we can do more, and we will be succeeding even more in Croatia in the future. I even plan to come over and to visit your universities, just to find out what we can do better, how we can be more present, and so on. So back to presentation. People like, of course, that we are working with very new vessels. If you join a new building, there is not really so much chipping and painting to do for the ratings, and also for the cadets sometimes. All the equipment is new, it's all in a good condition. Maybe you can be the first one ever sailing on the ship, and I think this is really establishing some kind of relationship. That's what I hear from people, and I can totally understand why. If you ever bought a new car, for example, and you are the first one sailing with it, this is something really special. And then you come afterwards, you come back to the same ship, and yeah, it's again coming like it's like coming home. Looking at the average age of our fleet, well, in 2019 they were all more or less 6 years old. But 6 years old in a year where we have sent 95% of our fleet to the shipyards for the scrubber installation, that means that all the renovations, everything that had to be done on the maintenance side, that was all done in the shipyards as well. So they are almost new again, even though they're already 6 years old. We have a lot of procedures in place. So we really take it serious. Safety is not only a word for us. We really want all of our seafarers to return home safely to their loved ones, because otherwise we can stop our operation right away. We have done a lot of work for finding out the best processes. We have a very detailed system for all the work instructions and so on. We are complying with all the international rules. So there shouldn't be any company that we are doing business with who is charging any money from our seafarers, for example. no crewing agency is allowed to charge you any kind of service fee or something. That's against the law. And if we would hear about it, we would definitely stop cooperation with these companies because, yeah, it's against the law and it's against our anti-corruption regulation. All the money that seafarers have to pay to, or that agencies can charge, has to come from the shipping companies. Then we are eco-friendly as much as possible. I mean, we're still talking about ships. So there is some impact, of course, but we try to keep our footprint as small as possible. Therefore, we have our green ship project. We have our transshipment project. So we really try to further develop. And whenever there's a chance to do something for the people in the companies and in the countries that we work, like in Guyana, for example, we have supplied schools with life vests. Believe it or not, but the people there are coming to school with some little paddle boats, you know, because they're working in all the little villages close to the rivers. So they're using the paddle boats in the morning. And therefore we decided that it's better if the kids are wearing life vests. So we always try to help people whenever there's a possibility. Of course, we have nice safety equipment. I think most of you have seen it maybe during your basic safety training. That's our emergency life-saving suits here for the seafarers. It's actually quite convenient. I have worn one in the wintertime as well, and there was ice around me and you could still feel comfortable warm. So that's nice. And it's also standard, so we are not the only ones using it. But I just want to point out that we are complying with all the rules and all the safety equipment is in a good condition. Of course, people have their own accommodation. Yeah? It's not allowed due to the Marine Labor Convention to put two people inside the same cabin. So that's just one example. It's actually coming from our own fleet as well. Of course, you can bring your own bed sheet. Yeah, you don't have to use the same. But my point is, you have a desk, you have a sofa here where you can also sleep when the vessel is maybe rolling for some time. Then you can also switch from the bed to the sofa. You have your own bathroom where you find everything you need. We have on all vessels some possibilities for people to do some after work exercises. For example, we have gymnasiums. The guys are always amazing. This wasn't supplied by the company, but the guys just help themselves. So we have some good engineers on board, and this is something they can do in about 10 minutes maybe. Even on some vessels, we have swimming pools. So the guys are just welding together a few steel plates, and then out of a sudden you have a swimming pool. It's very nice as well. So my point is, you are not only on board to work, you will be there to live, at least for some time. And therefore, we try to make it as comfortable as possible. There's also always some special account for the master to buy supplies for some barbecue, for example, so that you can have a little party every once in a while. So we try to keep the motivation upright. Otherwise, if people are not feeling well, yeah, the ship is not performing well, and that's also what we don't want from the commercial perspective. I think you understand my point. Yes, we do have internet on board our vessels. I think you will not find anyone from the younger generation nowadays who will join a vessel without internet connection, so I understand it. I only sailed for 3 months in one of our capers. During this time, there wasn't any internet for 3 months. It was also nice. It was a nice experience, I have to say, not to be connected to the outside world. The only news we would receive were coming from the master's computer every once in a while, and then you could see what happened in the world. It was an experience, but I also totally understand if people want to be connected to their friends and families and loved ones at home. I think the most important part in Oldendorf is that we are multinational. I mentioned it already several times, and as you can see here, we have people from all over the world. If you join an Oldendorf vessel, it can be that you will sail with people from 15 or more other nationalities around you. We always tell people it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter which skin color you have, which God you believe in, if you are a vegetarian or if you only eat meat or whatever, that all doesn't matter, as long as everybody on board gets along with each other fine, pays respect to each other and does their job, because the job is the purpose while bringing people together. And I have received quite a lot of feedback from people over the time who told me that even they were a little bit skeptical before. They weren't really so sure if they want to work with multinational crew or maybe better with only Croatians or only with Polish crew. And afterwards, all of them, really, I'm not joking, all of them said, I will definitely prefer the multinational crew. because you will get together with different cultures. You will hear totally different stories from people from the whole world. And I even found it very amazing myself when talking with somebody from Russia about, I don't know, politics. It's interesting. About religion as well. So there are completely different perspectives, but in the end, we all agree that, yeah, we are all human. We can all think what we want as long as we respect each other and get along with each other. So that also works fine, and people like it. Now I will give you a little bit more information about what it means to be a cadet in Oldendorf. For those of you who have been at sea maybe for one contract, you know that in the end of the contract, there will be an evaluation, at least one. So in the past, this was done confidential, also in Oldendorf. So that means the seafarer, after his time on board, let's say after 6 months, he would be due to sign off. He would go to the master would say, here are the papers. It was good to have you on board, see you again soon. So once the guy goes to the gangway, the master would send the confidential evaluation report saying that this guy didn't really perform well and I cannot see him in our fleet anymore. I think this is unfair. I don't know how you think about it, but if I'm doing something, always also in the office, and if I'm on the wrong track and if I can do better, then I would expect my superiors to tell me instead of talking behind my back. You know, I think this is not nice. And therefore we decided that this has to stop. But instead we have implemented a new system where during the course of the contract, the cadet has to get constant feedback, and there have to be evaluation meetings every 2nd month between the master and the cadet, or the chief engineer and the cadet, or the ETO and the cadet, so that the guys would be pointed into the right direction. And if then after 6 months in total, they would realize, the master would realize that this guy still didn't do it, it would be reason enough to put it down into the final evaluation. What is important is that people will get professional feedback. So of course there are different ways how I can tell people how good they are performing. I can say, you're stupid and I don't like you and I hope we'll never see each other again. You would definitely, or I would also feel, I wouldn't feel happy about it. Yeah, I would feel offended and I would definitely be lacking some motivation afterwards. Instead, we should tell the people what they are doing good and how they can do even better. Yeah? It's the same purpose. In the end, it's the same message, but it's a different way to put it. And in the end, you will actually feel thankful for the feedback, because now it's something valuable for you, something that you can use to further develop. Therefore, it's all about identification of training needs, because in the end, we're only doing it to train a cadet in order to become a qualified officer in the end. Now, that's what we do. Of course, that means a lot of investment. We invest money for it, and no cadet is obliged to return to us, of course. Everyone is free to go wherever he likes, but I want to tell you that my goal is that every cadet who joins us for the first contract will hopefully become master in the future. It may take a little longer for the one or the other, but we are really looking for people for a long-term cooperation, for a long-term relationship, and therefore we always try to deliver as much as we can to ensure that your process will run as smoothly as possible. Let me show you some examples of our training schedule, because in the old days, and I've had some discussions with masters and chief engineers before who told me, why would I treat the cadet as a future officer? When I was a cadet, I was not treated very well, and people were shouting at me and maybe even slapped me in the face, if it was so long ago. And then I've had this conversation many, many times. And then I always reply to them and say, well, times have changed. And I think they have changed to the better. So therefore, we have to ensure that we are learning from our mistakes. And therefore, we will not let the cadets do only chipping and painting for 6 months just because it's so convenient to have an extra working hand on board. But instead, we have to ensure that our deck cadets will also be trained in working as a bridge watchman. And they have to, of course, they have to be trained in deck work as well. You can only become a good chief officer one day if you have done the things yourself. Otherwise, you cannot tell the bosun in the morning about the jobs that have to be completed over the day if you don't know what you're talking about. The problem is the bosun will realize quite soon, and then he will not take you for, he will not respect you anymore in the end. So it's better to be trained and to be experienced. Of course, deck cadets also have to know what's going on in the engine department. Same for the engine department. They have to send the cadets to the deck department for some time just to create understanding. Otherwise, if one of you has already sailed via the Singapore Strait, for example, there's a lot of traffic going on. There are so many fishing boats, and the radio is ringing all the time. So there are people talking over and over again. Of course, you can be a little bit stressed if you're the deck officer on watch. Yeah, it can be that you are not very polite when you answer the phone. And if you're only working in the engine department and you have never seen it with your own eyes, you will not have the understanding of what's going on. So therefore, it's in order to create understanding and experience, we have to exchange the people, because otherwise the deck cadet will also not understand what it means to work in the engine department with 52 degrees and then doing some work on the main engine, for example. So it's all about understanding. Electrical cadets, I think they will be used everywhere. So whenever there's a light bulb or LED to be changed, they will be on deck. Not only that, but also in the engine room, we have our scrubber systems, ballast water treatment systems. Main engines are now controlled also electronically. So there's a lot to do. This is like a nice place for electricians in the modern world, because everything will be more and more computer controlled. Giving you some examples about your possible future with Oldendorf, our cadetship, we are looking for a certain profile. We are looking for a certain kind of character. So of course, English is our working language. If you don't have any experience yet in the multinational industry, then of course you will not be that fluent maybe already. Also, nobody expects you to be suddenly like a native English speaker, like a teacher from Oxford, you know, who never did anything else than teaching children. None of us is perfect in English, but we can all communicate with each other. So that's important. Then you need to be a team player. You have to be willing. You have to have the willingness to work in a multinational environment. And it's nice if you know everything, but it would be even better if you could share your experience with others. So I'm not looking for somebody who has very good marks in the university, but who is struggling to talk to other people. We need the people who can do both. And even if your marks are not really 100%, but maybe only average, but maybe if you're a good guy and you can really communicate well and you can learn, then you can still prove that you are the right person for joining us. So you have to be motivated to show high professional performance and to constantly learn. If I hear a master saying, I don't have to go to any training course because I'm doing this job for 30 years already and I know everything, then I think we would be struggling to give him re-employment, because even though he has done things for 25 or 30 years, the environment around him now is changing. So all the engineers, and let them be the perfect engineers of all times. Now, all of a sudden you have a new piece of equipment in the engine room, which nobody has any experience with. So people have to attend training courses, and they have to learn how to deal with these new equipment. So this is really motivation and high professional performance. That's what we need. That's also what we owe to our customers and owe to ourselves and to you and your colleagues on board. Because if you're unprofessional, then you can make mistakes, which in the worst case can cost lives. Yeah, we have to be honest about that. Working on board the ship is still a dangerous working environment. And therefore, we want to avoid all the cases where we have to send the rescue helicopter to take someone from the ship in very heavy weather conditions and so on. I mean, nobody wants that, yeah? So let's please all try to avoid it. This is what I mean, understanding of safety. All of us we all know what safety means, yeah? Well, we all want to survive. But you wouldn't believe how often I see people on board vessels, not only our own ones, but also other ships, who are theoretically very well aware of all the safety issues, but then they're not wearing any safety belt when they're doing some work on the upper levels of the accommodation, for example. So really use your brain to remember yourself if there's any risk involved, and then do the necessary safety precautions. Otherwise, it can cost lives. And as I mentioned already, we would like to have long-term cooperation with people, because as I say, you can always go somewhere else. That's fine, but I would feel sad about it, because in best case, I will know all our cadets in our system personally. I will meet you, hopefully. We will definitely talk for an interview. So latest by then, we will see each other. And then my plan is also to be in Croatia regularly, to be in our agency and to meet with our people over the time, because in the end, it's also my goal. In my last performance review, I got the goal, I got the task to create a training outline for people to become the next generation of masters and chief officers and chief engineers. So that's also my own interest that most of you will really manage. Talking about your career and how it could look like. I understand that most of you are still in university, still having to complete some studies. Maybe you have already graduated, but usually the graduation from university will be followed by a 6 months contract as a cadet. Then, because you need 12 months contract in total to receive your officer license, you would have a short vacation, and then you would go for another contract of 6 months. And afterwards, you would get your certificate of competency, your officer license. Now, I have heard complaints from people that 6 months is indeed a long time. It's almost half a year. Well, yes, it is. It is half a year, but we should be honest about that. This is about training. This is not about going on board and doing something. You really need to develop yourself. You really need to learn, first of all, and that takes time. And also we need to see if you are making any progress at all. So therefore we need these 3 evaluations over the course of 6 months. And then we need another 6 months contract, just because we want to see if you have learned something in between, and if you're really sure that working at sea is the right thing for you to do. All the cadets we have in our company, they are all agreeing with that, and they all say it's absolutely fine. And they also understand that they are still in training, and once they become qualified and certified officers, the contract durations will be shorter for sure. Yeah. So afterwards, there will be a contract of a junior officer, or in the junior officer rank. It can be junior officer for Beck, junior engineer, or junior electrician. The reason why we have decided to create these ranks is that we have seen people failing after we promoted them right away to, let's say, a deck cadet to 3rd mate. Now the cadet was coming on board, and the master was informing us that his performance is not really good enough to do the 3rd officer duties, and he would like to have another guy relieving him. And then we found out that, first of all, this cadet was previously sailing with the same master, and then obviously somebody did a mistake. Somebody did really not train the cadet sufficiently. So I could reply, and I did. I replied back to the master and asked him, like, dear captain, all yours well noted. Can you please explain, as the cadet has sailed with you before, why now you're complaining that he is not yet ready? So now he had to train him. The master had to train this guy, even though he was already 3rd mate, in some very basic things. But now suddenly and finally, the master understood that it was on him to create our next generation of officers. So therefore, all the masters are being briefed now regularly, and I'm preaching to them over and over again that it's not about only wasting money, it's about creating our new generation of experts in the end. So therefore, in order to give the people more time also before they will be finally promoted, we will put you on board in a junior officer rank, at least for 1 contract, then followed by vacation, then maybe also another contract, because in some cases it can be that people have only sailed, after all, only 1 cadet contract with us, and then we need definitely 2 junior contracts in addition, just to see if people are still growing. Of course, the expectations from the performance perspective will be higher once you have your COC. And the truth is that at this point here, we will have more people in our pool than we will finally need for the next step, which is the promotion to 3rd mate, to 4th engineer, or ETO. So therefore, we will do a very, very strict selection here. We have to do that. And in the end, it's all about your performance. It's about you. It's about your willingness that you have shown during the previous contracts to grow. And hopefully the decision will be very difficult for us, because all of you have done amazing jobs. That's really what I hope for. And then we maybe have to buy more ships or something. I don't know. Yeah, but I hope you don't understand me wrong. It's not that nobody has a chance. Everyone has a chance. It's just that you have to use it. You have to use it well. I have had cases where cadets joined the ship, and the master, when I asked him, he replied and said that this guy is not motivated at all. He is not studying. He's not using any of his free time to ask questions and so on. well, then I'm sorry for that, but then we have to, then we can give the position to somebody else, to somebody who's higher motivated. Once you have achieved this here, yeah, you are definitely part of the team. Doesn't mean that you have to stop well performing, but as I mentioned, this can also be skipped in case we realize that he is already good enough for promotion right here. But once you are here, nothing is stopping you from joining our big beasts in your designated roles. So you will be the future already. You will be the future of maybe the future master, taking responsibility and taking over the vessels, and hopefully you will be performing well and proving that we can count on you. Now, we are very oftenly asked, how long does it take me to become master? Well, the truth is, it depends. It's a typical "it depends" answer, because you can do it theoretically in 5 years. Realistically, and also this is what I would recommend, same applies to the engineer, by the way, I would recommend that you will take your time, because there's nothing worse than somebody who was really rushing through all the ranks just to become these 4 stripes here on his shoulders, but then lacking experience. And then suddenly everybody realized that this guy was promoted much too early, and then maybe we cannot offer any re-employment to the captain because he's just not good enough. Yeah? And this can be avoided if we really take our time, and this is always in average 2 contracts, but if it takes 3, my goodness, maybe then you will have 1 contract shorter in the next rank. You will definitely have to build up your own experience. It doesn't mean that there are no people managing to become master after 5 years, 5, 6 years. It's possible, but just my advice, take your time. Take your time and don't rush yourself. You have a whole life. You have a whole lifetime to climb up in your career. We have people in our company who are sailing with us for, believe it or not, 42 years. Some ratings especially. They have started in the very young age, and now they're still there, and they are really experienced. And I don't know about your plans for the next 40 years, but hopefully you will at least spend a big portion of it on board our ships to become master, chief engineer, and also ETO. ETO is a very important role nowadays, as I mentioned already, due to all the equipment. And this will also be reflected on my next slide, because of course, nobody does anything for free. Yeah, also, I'm also paid for my job, so definitely we have to talk about money. Let me give you an overview about our wage system for the cadets. So starting with cadets, they will earn up to $700 per month. From our perspective, no taxes or something like that will be deducted. I learned from Philip that there might be some changes in the system in Croatia as well in the future, which will be good for you in the end. But 700 including overtime. So now cadets are also allowed to do overtime as long as they still comply with the work and resting hours by the MLC convention. If there is any spare time and if you want to participate in some extra operation, you can do that. You can earn a little bit more money. But I think it's about learning. It's not making the big amount of money. Yeah? Once you join in the junior officer ranks, you can earn $2,500 per month, which is good considering that you will be there in addition and you don't have any fixed duties yet. I mean, if you're good and if you prove that you can do already third mate duties, then maybe we can even promote you right away. Yeah? There's also no secret. If you prove to us that you are ready to take over the job, then nothing speaking against it. But as long as you're junior officer, 2,500. And once you reach third officer or fourth engineer level, your salary starts with 3,100 US. And then we have a level system for our top ranks. So I think a master in level 4 can earn up to $10,600 US per month. It always depends on yourself. It always depends on your rank. It always depends on your license, and it depends on your performance in the end, because in the master levels, the people will be hand selected. It should also be a motivation. But generally speaking, I think for the bulk industry, our wages are pretty good. Now for the ETO, we have also increased our wages, and I think for the time being, there's nobody on the bulk market paying higher wages to ETOs. You can become the ETO already after you have your ETO license. Usually you have to join as a junior electrician or junior ETO in the end, So after that, after you have sailed as junior electrician, you can become ETO once you have the license. And then you will start with $5,600 and you can also earn more depending on your seniority. So finally, it's about some key figures, it's about some key values, which is safety first, yeah, because otherwise nobody gets home alive. Then we have teamwork, we have to do it together. Nobody is fighting for himself. In the end, you have to fight for your team. We have professionalism, so whatever we do, we have to do as perfect as possible. Then we have to be loyal. As I say, we are loyal to you if you are loyal to us. We have to be respectful, and we have to take care of our environment, because there is indeed only one Earth. Yeah? There's only one Earth, there's only one planet, and well, I think we should take care of it much more. Now, I hope that I have convinced you that, first of all, joining the bulk industry, but also joining Oldendorf in the bulk industry might be a good decision. If you're interested, and if you could consider yourself working for Oldendorf, I would like you to check our website in any way. I mean, oldendorf.com, you can find all the information about our company, about our trades, about our vessels, and so on. And in the section C, careers, you can fill out the application tool. Once you do that, the application will automatically be forwarded to DGS. So then Philip and his team will take care of your application. You will be contacted. There will be some pre-selection and then also followed by a computer-based assessment. So we have to do it. It's all about benchmarking. We have to find out who has checked our website. So I will tell you a secret. Most of the questions about Oldendorf in our computer-based assessment can be answered by checking our website. I mean, there's no rocket science. There will be some questions about the designated duties, or about the deck cadet position, about the engine cadet position, about the electrical cadet position. So we have even got some input from the universities in Poland. So we have asked them to provide us with some questions so that we can ensure that it's actually on the level that the cadets can still answer. And our results have shown that people can manage, indeed. Afterwards, we will have an interview. I would speak to you, and in this, you don't have to be scared about it. We will just talk. You know, I will have some questions about you, so there's basically no wrong answer. I will ask you why you decided to become a seafarer, so you should be clear about your motivation, because nothing is worse than somebody in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean who realized, shit, I want to work in an office. Then it will take a little bit of time until we can make that possible, and of course we would lose somebody in our project, in our training program. Afterwards, you would be joining our fleet, and it's finally all about performance. Really do the best, not only in our company. Show that you are motivated, show that you are able to learn, show that you are willing to improve your skills. Nobody is perfect. We can all learn something, and then we will finally reach a point where we are doing good. Now it's time for question and answers. I hope that over the time you have already sent some questions which we now can answer. I'm also very glad to see that there are still over 50 participants. So I hope it's still the same. Very nice. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening. And I'm really looking forward to the question part. So Philip, is there anything that we can talk about?
Yes, there is, Jan. Thank you very much for the comprehensive presentation. And we even climbed up a little bit with the number of participants. So really, that's fine. Please, do you see the questions under the section Q&A from the menu? We have actually 2 questions in written. I already answered from my side the one regarding the documentation to be prepared prior first joining. So this is something which was resolved, and now we have from Mr. Matteo 2 questions actually.
Yeah,
do you see them?
Read it.
Yeah.
Oh, electrical systems. Okay, so well, it starts with the light bulb, yeah, but of course that's the boring part. Then we have the ballast water treatment systems. We are using on most of the ships a system from AMA First. It's a Greek company, and this is using high voltage to create chloride on board in order to filter out and to clean the ballast water. Well, yeah, there's electricity involved in any case. We have our scrubber system from Yara. It's a company from, I think, from Norway or Sweden. I don't want to say anything wrong. They're normally producing fertilizer, so don't ask me about the connection between that, but now they decided to create scrubber systems. So we have the two systems, then we have the MAN-ME engine, so there's quite a lot to do for the electrician as well. Well, what else? Basically everything. Yeah, we have everything, all the bridge equipment, all the active systems, all the radar systems. In the end, if a fuse needs to be replaced, that's the easy part, but also there can be more critical parts. Most important part maybe is cranes. So as you have seen on the photos, many of our vessels have cranes. It's either cranes from Liebherr or from MacGregor. And these cranes are all also electronically steered. So therefore, that's an interesting job actually for the electrician. We also have created training courses. I was previously also involved in the training for seafarers in Oldendorf. So I was doing it myself. I was creating training courses with the manufacturers. So we are always in close contact with the Liebherr and Emma First if there's anything that we can teach to our ETOs. And therefore, we will be hosting some new training sessions in the future for the special equipment. There will be somebody from the manufacturers coming on board. We will invite people to some facilities, maybe to some workshops where they can learn how to fix problems, because it's also in our favor, in our interest, if we can solve the problem while the vessel is still on the way. We can save a lot of time, and time is money in shipping, instead of waiting for the external technician to join the vessel and fix a crane problem, for example. So in best case, we have invested training in our ETOs before, so that they can do it themselves. Also, all these training courses, I mean, every seafarer needs to be trained and needs to be certified and licensed with the STCW certificate. So that's all on your part. You have to have that to be a seafarer able to work at sea. But all the other trainings that you will need, which are required by the company, we will take care of that, and we will also pay them. You know, you don't have to pay for any such trainings. Of course, if there's anything coming new from the STCW perspective, then that may come on your shoulders as well. But all the special parts, all the company-specific part, will be arranged by us. I hope this answers the question. Otherwise, if there's anything else, you can always send us an email afterwards. I will switch to the next slide right now, actually, so that you can see. You can contact DGS for any questions in any case. Then Philip will forward to me, and then we'll find out what the best answer is. Then we have another question also from Matteo, wondering if you could tell us a bit about your cadetship program, specifically electrical cadet. So I think I did that. I hope the questions are already answered. But again, if there is anything missing, if maybe I was talking so fast and so much, maybe there is something that I haven't spoke about, let us know, and we will be more than happy to help you. Yeah, for sure. And also, if you are electrical cadets right now out there in Croatia, send us your applications. We really want you. We really want you, because all the equipment on board needs specialists to take care of, and therefore we really need you. And for some reason, we always have huge numbers of deck cadets, a few numbers, smaller numbers of engine cadets, and then only very, very tiny few ETO cadets. So I don't know why, because the ETOs is, I mean, it's such an interesting field of work, and therefore I can only encourage you, try to work on the ships. Anything?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jan. Yeah, maybe we can just use a couple of more minutes for the poll questions for all the attendees today. And yeah, we will need actually like a minute or two. And then maybe Sergeant Tank can shortly take over again. We all agree on that. So everyone, the poll questions will be launched now. Probably you should see the first question on your screen. So please take a few seconds to answer. The information will for sure be available for us. and to know even how to plan more future events, right, Jan, or appearances from our side.
Definitely, yeah. Also, if you think that everything today was a waste of time, then let us know. So hopefully we can avoid doing the same mistakes for the next session, yeah? Because as I mentioned, we will be more present. I will be even coming over to Croatia. And if there is anything that would help us, any feedback would help us to do better, then we need that.
Perfect. Okay, we have still some answers coming on the first question.
Okay, yeah, maybe 30 seconds more.
Yeah.
It's already lunchtime,
definitely.
so people need to get their sandwiches.
We need to hurry up, yeah. Okay, perfect. More and more coming.
Excellent. Thank you for your participation, guys. That's really much appreciated. That's the interactive part. That was what I was talking about.
Okay, believe we have more than 80% of participants voted. So let's move on to the next one. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, so the question number 2 should be active now. Yeah, you should have also a sip of water or something.
Good idea, actually.
It was
not,
not,
you can hear that in my voice, yeah?
No, it should help for sure. Again, thanks a lot. Serjan, yeah, okay, so everyone, we will have 2 more questions, poll questions live, but in the meantime, maybe if you can share any additional questions from your side prepared prior to the presentation, or if any, of course. So use this time as well.
There's also another question here I see from Ante. How long approximately do you think this process will last for ETO cadets before possible interviews and maybe employment? A good question, actually. Thank you, Ante. That's a good question because I didn't say anything about it. I think we should at least give some deadline, because I think also DGS needs to start working now. So our recruitment tool on the website is open all the time, 365 days a year. Please send your application. In best case, the sooner the better. Right now, we are still facing a situation that due to Corona, our crew changes are a little bit delayed, so that the next open slots for cadets most of them will come available for October. So this gives us a little bit of time for proper preparation. And also, I think it goes without saying that we cannot employ like 100 people now, even though if I would, because I think Croatia is a perfect market. I think we have to focus on lower numbers now. I will not say any numbers now, because if we are getting so many overwhelming applications, then we will likely also extend it. But let's say during the next 2 weeks, yeah, just send your application during the next 2 weeks, and then we can still find out when you would actually join, because not all the vessels will be empty only in October. Maybe some will only also be available next week or something. Flexible.
Yeah, Jan, also correct me if I'm wrong. We need to mention again this a little bit boring word, Corona thing, which a little bit messed up our plans, right? Which were usually regularly going very well, but now some uncertainties, let's say, in planning during summertime. So yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
If I may say now, Jan, thank you for very intensive presentation. It was my pleasure, definitely. And I'm really happy that you are part of this Alumni Online Day. And also, just to add, I had some questions from the students night before. They're planning to graduate in September, October, and November, for example. What about for these students who are planning to finish their graduation at the end of this year?
Well, send us your applications. There is no reason why we would only hire people right now, because I understand in Croatia the market is different than in other countries, for example. So I understand that here people will graduate and afterwards they will be available for the time on board. In other countries, they have to return to the university. So then we are a little bit blocked in our flexibility, and then we cannot really put the people on board so flexibly as we prefer. So therefore, just send us your application as soon as you are in our system. We will make a plan. I mean, there's nothing else I can tell you. There's no any deadline till when we will hire cadets from Croatia each year. If there's an open slot and if you are the right candidate, then you're welcome to join us.
I saw also that you have lots of new building vessels, so you need to fill with cadets from all departments. So this is also good opportunity for the students. I completely agree with you.
Exactly. Yeah. As I also mentioned before, our fleet is always growing. There's always some vessels coming and being sold. So there's always changes, and therefore we always need people. Also, there will be people maybe who will decide that they will not continue with their cadetship, so that out of a sudden there is free capacity left, and we will be happy to fill it up. Also, I haven't mentioned it before, but for me it's so natural and so, yeah, how to say, it goes without saying that of course we also accept applications from female cadets. Yeah, I don't understand the question actually. I was asked that before. There is no way why we would not allow any women on board. Yeah, definitely the times have changed, and I think from what I heard as well, we have some only very few, unfortunately, female cadets. And one of them joined the vessel. Everybody was like very unsure if that's a good idea, because everyone knows that women will bring bad luck on board. Bullshit. After 1 month, the whole crew was so happy because they realized that there was finally somebody to tell them how to do proper paperwork and to do some really to keep their things tidy. Not to say that she was doing it, but she was finally motivating everyone that, well, if you do administrational jobs, which is unfortunately a big part of seafaring today, though the master is also doing a lot of email work and stuff like that. This lady was so talented and was so nice to organize everything that she did it in her free time, and everybody was really benefiting from it. So, anything else from Eureka? It was very nice to listen to your informative presentation. Thank you. I do have a question regarding the junior officer position. I fully understand the need for such role, but is the position absolutely mandatory, or can it, if all duties are fulfilled and gross notice, be considered unnecessary? I think one contract has to be there in any case. It's just that we have to be fair. I think it wouldn't be fair if we would let people from Croatia join without the junior contract, but people from Croatia, from Turkey or Poland or so, they would have to do it. Also, we need these people. Yeah, we need junior engineers for our engine rooms, for example, and we need junior officers to also assist on some certain tasks. And if we realize, and I mentioned that before, if we realize that somebody is already capable of doing it and is fully licensed and so on, and is available and flexible and so on, then we can maybe save one crew change and promote the people right away, so that on board they can take over the new role as the third mate, and then we only have to put a new junior on board. That all works. But I think one contract is mandatory. It is, and I mean, the duration is also flexible. Yeah. So if you are with us for your cadetship and afterwards you will join once more and you show good performance, then 4 months may be already enough. But it's also no blame if you need 2 contracts. It just means that we are not 100% sure yet, or maybe you are not. We'll find out together. Students into consideration. If we have basic documents after finishing a maritime high school and would like to work on board a vessel while going to a maritime university, would you take those students into consideration? Yes, definitely, if you are available for the time of 6 months. I mean, you will need 12 months anyway. You will need 12 months seagoing experience. So for me, it doesn't really matter if you do it in the designated semester or if you do it when there is time in between. I just don't want, and we cannot go away from these 6 months for cadets, because for the given reasons. As I mentioned, we need to see some certain growth in the performance and in the position, and therefore 6 months is mandatory. If you can do it in between, even better for you, I would say, because I think finally you will save some time.
Okay, perfect. I think this is all for the moment. We have gone through all the questions in live, poll questions. Once again, dear Serjan, dear Jan, thank you very much. Dear participants as well, please feel free to stay in touch with all three of us on certain levels, in certain ways. And yeah, hope to see you and hear you all soon. Serjan, please, you probably want to close up and wrap up for today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Once again, thank you for interesting presentation. Thank you that you are with us together in our Alumni Online Day. Thank you, Philip, for everything, for connection. And thank you, dear students, graduate students, and now going students for participating. And I'm thinking that this presentation you will find very, very well, especially if you want to start with your future. But you will soon start with your future after you finish your graduation. These are your possibilities that you can take in advance, and this is your additional information where you can find your place very easily at the maritime market. So once again, I wish you warm welcome from the Faculty of Maritime Studies, and see you at another Alumni Online Day. Thank you, Mr. Jan Kozer, once again. It was fantastic.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Philip Golesh. And take care.
Take care, guys.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.